It's the International Soccer Preview. We are Soccerphiles Canada. Welcome to Series 31, looking at the players of the 2025 African Cup. This episode is looking at the players of Uganda. Part 1, the candidates. Here we go! Hello and welcome to the International Soccer Preview by Soccerphiles Canada. I'm Kevin and this is Series 31 on the players of the 2025 African Cup. This episode covers Uganda's players. Just a note on where we're at in our media casts. We are publishing previews of the groups and teams of the 2025 African Cup at the same time as this series on the players. Last summer, we previewed the groups, teams, and players for the 2025 CONCACAF Gold Cup, and we also did a media cast introducing ourselves. After this African Cup, we will tackle the massive 48-team World Cup in the summer of 2026. So keep your eye out. We're going to start publishing episodes for that in the springtime of 2026. We're doing this media cast on the players in two parts. Part 1 here is a look at the candidates for the squad and their likelihood of making it. We examine the participation of players in games over the recent period, as well as a couple of other factors, and categorize them into definite, likely, possible but unlikely, and seemingly off the squad. We'll go into more details on the players we think likely to reach the final squad, and less, perhaps even just the names of players unlikely to get there. Part 2 will come out when the squad lists are released and the final squad selected, probably in early to mid-December. At that time, we'll go back over the list that we create here today and see who made it and who didn't. And we'll also cover things like injuries and surprise selections. So this episode has 3 sections. In section 1, we look at some general information on the team. Section 2 is the main part. We cover the candidates and in each position and their likelihood of making the squad. And then in section 3, that's a summary, and we conclude, especially focusing on injuries to keep an eye on. All right, let us begin and move on to section 1. So some general information on the team. We have actually been putting the names of some big names who are off the squad in this section. We're actually going to save that for sections 2 and 3. So in section 2, we'll give some details on the player. In section 3, we'll just review the names. So let's look at the club affiliations for Uganda. What types of teams do Uganda players play for? Uganda has a small league. Generally, players will want to move to bigger clubs or leagues to develop their career. A few do play outside. Well, we have about 30% playing in the domestic league, and the clubs represented there are Vipers. That's probably the biggest club, along with Kampala Capital City Authority. Oh, I spelled that wrong. Look. Capital City Authority. I do want to point out one of the slightly smaller teams, Bull Jinja, because in Korean, Bull means fire and Jinja means like kind of really. So I'm sure that they didn't invent that as a Korean name, but I think it's just funny that we could term the team Real Fire, which would be a cool name. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. 30% then in domestic leagues. These are rough percentages, by the way. About 15% in nearby leagues. So nearby leagues would be Tanzania, Rwanda, and Ethiopia, so teams in those countries. And then we have about the same amount, 15%, in African and Asian leagues. So these would be kind of larger African or Asian leagues, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, and Israel. And also Qatar and the UAE. Those kind of leagues. About 5 of them play outside of basically that. So we have one player in the USA and one in Vietnam, and then about 30% in, I'd say, small to mid-sized clubs in Europe. I'll give you a few examples there. Um, Sweden and England seem to be the most popular. There are a few, maybe a diaspora there of Ugandans in Sweden. A few players come from Sweden and England, so they actually may be born in Sweden and England. And a couple of the teams there would be Mjällby in Sweden, or Burton Albion in England. So not really big clubs there. And then other clubs in Europe, just to give you a taste, would be Hibernian in Scotland, Slovan Liberec in Czech Republic, and Anorthosis Famagusta in Cyprus. Those are pretty much the biggest clubs. So we would say none really playing for top, say, Premier League clubs there in Europe. Okay, that's an overview of their club affiliations, and in part two we'll basically tell you which team each player plays for. Let's take a look at the recent games. So in the build up to the cup here, we're examining the position of players from the start of 2024, January 2024. We usually start from the previous African Cup, but Uganda didn't make the African Cup there. And we're going all the way up to October of 2025. That's what we've prepared for the podcast or for the mediacast here, even though they have played games in November. We'll talk a little bit about that soon. So in January and March of 2024, we have 3 friendlies that they played. The January one was quite experimental, I would say, but the 2 March games we think represent their starting team at the time. Moving on to June 2024, we get 2 World Cup qualifiers for the 2026 World Cup there. In the fall of 2024, they have 6 games, and all of them are dedicated to African Cup qualifying for this tournament. So that was all of the qualifying games, and obviously they passed it because we're talking about them here. Moving on to March 2025, we have 2 more World Cup qualifiers. And in June of 2025, we have 2 friendlies. There were 2 friendlies in July of 2025. They played 2 games with Tanzania. We are not counting those in the count. It doesn't seem to have been a lot of their top players weren't involved with that. So we'll skip that one and move on to September and October of 2026. And that was the culmination of World Cup qualifying, 4 games there. And they had the same manager throughout this whole period. So pretty stable in terms of how that goes. Next, we take a quick look at formations. We're not going to go through it in detail, but rather kind of provide a summary there. And they played 18 games over this period. They used 5 different formations, and we're going to tell you the top 2, covering 14 of the 18 games. 7 of them, or 39%, let's call it 40%, was a 4-2-3-1 formation, and another 7 or 40% was a 4-3-3 formation. So those are the 2 main formations they used, and they cover 80% of the game. So good to kind of keep in your head as we talk about the position. Let's do a little analysis on that then. We have a 2-man central defense 100% of the time. So Uganda never used a 3-man central defense during this period. We have a 3-man, we have a single forward in 83% of the games, and that means a 2-man forward line in 17% of the games. And I should say, in that 4-3-3 formation, we consider that a single forward with the outside forwards being left attacking and right attacking midfielders. We'll talk about that more when we get to that position. So there we have it. The last order of business here is upcoming games. Well, as I said, they have been played because we're doing this at the end of November. So they had a friendly on November 14th. Well, two friendlies, November 14th and 18th, both of them in Morocco. And we're not really interested in the scores there. But I might as well tell you since I know. One was a 2-1 win over Chad on the 14th, Chad, the African country, and the other was with Morocco themselves, the hosts then, with a 4-0 loss to Morocco. Anyway, we're more interested in the lineups, but we're not going to cover that in part 1 here. We're going to save that information for part 2 because we like to have a couple of games to look at in part 2 to help us predict the starters. So we're only going up to the end of October here, and we're moving on to section 2, our look at the candidates here. So let us begin with the manager situation, and I'll just put 2 names on the list. The first one is Paul Putt. It could be pronounced Paul Putt. He's their manager who has guided them through this whole period. But I will put the name of the previous manager, Milutin Sredojevic, because it features in the narrative. Let's go to the narrative, the kind of the story of the managerial situation over the last little while. And Milutin Sredojevic was the manager of Uganda from 2021 to 2023. In fact, that was his second stint with as manager of Uganda, and he was sacked in September of 2023 after they had failed to qualify for the 2023 African Cup. That was played in January of 2024. An interim manager came in to guide them through the October friendlies in 2023, and Paul Putt came in just before their first World Cup 2026 qualification games began in November of 2023. So he led them through World Cup qualification games there in November 2023 and March 2024. But the fall of 2024 was actually qualification for this cup. So he led them to a successful qualification. And in 2025, they completed the rest of World Cup qualification, where they did quite well, finishing second in their group, but not high enough among second place finishers to reach the playoffs there. Nevertheless, a pretty good showing. They had come in as the top 3 team there, so finishing second was a positive result. All right, so the manager, Paul Putt, taking them through this whole period then, and let's move on to look at the goalkeepers. And we'll begin by naming the candidates, and then we'll do the narrative of the position, and then we'll come back and look in more detail at the main candidates. So here we have no definite candidates, but we have a likely candidate in Salim Jamal Magula, usually called Salim Magula. And another candidate at the likely level is Dennis Onyanga. And actually a third candidate at the likely level, Nafian Alionzi. And then we have 2 candidates at the possible level. The first is Joel Mutakubwa, and the other one, Ismail Watanga. One candidate at the possible but unlikely is Hannington Sebwaluno. And then 2 candidates seemingly off the squad, Tom Ikaru and Charles Lukwago. So quite a few names there. And let me tell you about the situation. Actually, it's kind of weird. What we have here over the period is a player who was off the squad, coming in, starting a few games, and then disappearing. That describes most of the players here. I'll take you through it. Tom Ikara started the 3 friendlies in January and March of 2024, but he was off the squad After that, in fact, he had been off the squad before that as well, so just came in for those games and disappeared. Next, Ismail Watenga, who had been off the squad, came in to start all games from June 2024 to the end of the year. He played some of the four games in March and June of 2025. He was even captain for the last game, Watenga, but after June 2025, he was not selected again. Nafian Alionzi had been on the bench actually for a year before. He subbed into the first game in March of 2025 at halftime, and then he started the next two games. But he too was off the team after that. Salim Jamal Magula, who had been off the team during this whole period, came in to start 3 of the 4 games in the fall of 2025. So for the last 2 games then, the 3 selections were Magula and Onyango. Each of them started one of the games in the fall of 2025, and Alionza on the bench. One of the games in October 2025, and Alionzi on the bench, having been recalled after a 3-game absence. So that leaves us then with those 3 candidates who are likely, we think, but who knows, the way players have been coming in and out, any of our players here could be recalled to the squad. Anyway, let's take a look at these players. Beginning with Salim Jamal Magula. So he's been with Uganda since 2012 with 16 caps for the national team. He's 30 years old, and he was actually part of the squad for the 2017 and 2019 African Cups, but he was a backup keeper, or maybe the third keeper actually, in both of those tournaments. So, as we saw, he had returned after an almost 2-year absence in September 2025 and started 3 of their remaining games to October, 3 of their remaining games there on the bench for the one other. So he started both September games and one of the October games. So he's kind of the most recent candidate. That's why we have him at the likely level. Next is Dennis Onyango, and he has been with Uganda since 2005, believe it or not. He has 85 caps for the national team and is 40 years old right now. He plays for Mamelodi Sundowns in South Africa since 2011, so a long career with them too, and has played in South Africa actually since 2006. He too was part of the squad for the 2017 African Cup. He was the starting keeper, but he lost his starting position. In 2019 African Cup, he was the captain of the team and started all 4 games, but he did sub out injured in game 3 there. So you'll see, actually, as we go, not many of the players played in those African Cups. Magula and Onyango are 2 of the only ones we're going to meet who did play in those tournaments. Dennis Onyango returned after a 4.5-year absence in October of 2025, and he started 1 of their remaining 4 games, as well as subbing in for 1. He was on the bench for the 2 others. So, yes, another player coming in late, but coming back from the cold, let's say. The other likely candidate is Nafian Alionzi. He's been with Uganda since 2022 with 9 caps, and he plays for a club in Ethiopia, Defence Force. He started 2 of their 19 games over the period. He was subbed in for 1 and on the bench for 10, but not selected for 6 others. And I think a couple of the ones he missed were toward the end there in September. So he also kind of came back into the squad at the end. Okay, let's look at the 2 possible candidates. Joel Matakupwa, he's been with Uganda since 2019 with 13 caps. He's 31 years old. He also plays in Uganda or in Ethiopia. And he didn't start any of the games over the period. He was subbed in for one and on the bench for four. But those include the September 2025 matches, so fairly recent. He was not selected for the last two matches, Mutakupa. The other possible candidate, Ismail Watenga, has been with Uganda since 2014 with 38 caps. He's 30 years old, and he, like Magula, like Onyango, plays for Mamelodi Sundowns in Africa. There, but he has been loaned out to other teams in South Africa. I should have said South Africa, not Africa, but he's played in South Africa since 2020. So Ismail Watenga had started 10 of their 19 games over the period. He was subbed in for one and on the bench for one, but not selected for seven, including the last four matches. So for a big chunk of the period, he was the starting keeper, Ismail Watenga, but now just a possible candidate. We'll give briefer looks at the candidates below that level. Hannington Sebolunyo didn't start any of the games. He first appeared on the bench in June of 2025. He was on the bench for one game and then not selected for the last four matches. So just a quick look in for him. Tom Ikara, as we saw in the narrative, started the position or started as the goalkeeper in the beginning of this period, but he was not selected after May 2025. There. And finally, Charles Lukwago last played for the national team, or last appeared on the bench in November 2024, so a bit further out of the picture for him. Okay, that is our look at goalkeepers, and let us go on to defenders, central defence, and begin by nominating the candidate. So we have as a definite candidate Jordan Obita. He's actually coded as a left back, but we've moved him here. Because he played here more, kind of fits the narrative better here. The next candidate is at the likely level. It's Ilayo Cabradosi. And then we have four possible candidates. The first one is Bevis Mugabe. Then we have Timothy Awani, Hilary Mukundane, and then Rogers Torak. So four possible candidates. And then we have seemingly off the squad Arnold Odong. And then, Arnold Odong is possible but unlikely. And then seemingly off the squad, Khalid Lualiwa. Well, I challenge you to say it better than I did. Okay, you probably can, but it is tough. Lualiwa, Lwaliwa. I'll let you pause and practice that for a while and then come back and say it to me. Okay, well done. Okay, let's go to the narrative of central defenders here. 5 different central defenders were used in the 3 friendlies in January and March of 2025. Only Bevis Mugabe, who's actually coded as a right back, only he started twice. And apart from the next 2 games in June 2024, Mugabe was a regular. That's why actually we've moved him to central defence here. He was a regular starter until March of 2025. However, he was off the team after that. Khalid Waliwa, Khalid Waliwa was the main partner of Mugabe until the end of 2024, but he was off the team after that as well. Newcomer Ilayo Capradosi played the 2 June 2024 games alongside Waliwa and then continued for most of the period, including the last 4 games. However, Cappadocia did miss 4 games in the fall of 2024. And a few players saw single starts during that period. We won't get into those details, but it was Mugabe and Cappadocia as the pairing in March of 2025. Again, 4 different players appeared in the June 2025 friendlies, but one of them was left back Jordan Obita. He replaced Mugabe for the September matches in 2025. And so the new partnership in October of 2025, and the one we're left with, was Jordan Obita and Elio Cappadocia. And they played 3 of the games, actually, 3 of the last 4 games together. Okay, so let's take a look at the candidates. Even though Cappadocia seems a kind of more central figure back here, we have Jordan Obita as a definite candidate, and you'll see why. But let me introduce him. He's been with Uganda just since 2025, and he has 7 caps already. He's 32 years old, and he was born in England. He actually plays for Hibernian in Scotland since 2023 and Wickham in England before that. So we saw he got his first cap in June of 2025 and started all 6 of their remaining games. So I think I maybe made a mistake with 7 caps. Perhaps he played one of the November games. Anyway, all 6 of their remaining games. That's why we have him as a definite candidate. Elio Cappadocia, though, is a more central figure in central defence here. He's been with Uganda since 2024 with 11 caps and 1 goal. He's 29 years old, and he plays for a club in Romania. It's Universitatea Cluj in Romania, and he also played for teams in Italy before that. So he was born to an Italian father and a Ugandan mother, because Cappadocia doesn't sound like a Ugandan name there. He moved to Italy when he was 2 years old, so he was born in Uganda. Cappadocia got his first cap then in June of 2024, and he started 11 of their remaining 16 games and was not selected for 4 matches there. But we consider him here a likely candidate, almost definite, I would say. The first of our 4 possible candidates is Bevis Mugabe. He's coded as a right back, but we've moved him over here. He did actually play as a right back in 2019, but recently has been playing in central defence. Mugabe is with Uganda since 2018 with 28 caps and 1 goal. He's 30 years old. He too was born in England and has played mostly for clubs in England. Carlisle in England since 2025, but he also played in Cyprus and Scotland as well. And he was part of the 2019 African Cup squad. He started and finished 3 of the 4 games there. And over the recent period, Mugabe has started 10 of their 19 games, but not selected for 9 others, and that includes the last 6 matches. So that's why we have him as just a possible candidate here. The second possible candidate is Timothy Awani. He's been with Uganda since 2016 with 46 goals. 46 caps and no goals. He is 29 years old and plays for Kampala CCA, I'll call it there. It's he's been with them since 2014, and he is one of the players who was part of the African Cup both in 2017 and 2019. Didn't see any action in 2017 and just subbed into, it was just a sub in the 2019 version, and he still seems to be, because he only started 1 of their 19 games over this period. He subbed in for 3 and was on the bench for 3. But was not selected for the last 6 matches, just like Mugabe there. The third possible candidate is Hilary Mukundane, and he's been with Uganda since 2022 with 10 caps. He's 28 years old. He plays for Vipers in Uganda, and has been in Uganda for his whole career. He was actually off the squad and returned after a 2.5 year absence in June of 2025. But didn't start any of their games. He was subbed in for one and on the bench for one, and then not selected for three others. And he also played for the B team in the African National Championship in 2025. So we'll see a few of these players did. I'm not sure I'm going to mention it from now on, though, unless it's significant. The fourth possible candidate is Rogers Torak, and he's been with Uganda since 2024 with 8 caps and 1 goal. He's much younger at 22 years old, also plays for Vipers in Uganda, and he started one of their 19 games, the first one, in fact, but he was on the bench for 3 and then not selected for 16 others. But he was on the squad in the first game of October of 2025, so he's a possible candidate. And here and in other places, if the caps don't add up, it usually means that they've played in the African National Championship, which does count towards their cap count for the national team. Okay, and then let's take a look at Arnold Odon. Well, we won't go into much detail on him here. Let me see. Sorry, I'm just kind of reading over here. He didn't start any games, but he was on the bench for 4 during the period, but not selected for 12 others. And if he's unlikely, that probably means many of the recent games he wasn't selected for. And our last player actually did come up at the beginning of the narrative there, Halad Waliwa, and he last appeared in November of 2024, so active in the beginning of the period, but not called up after that. We will give more details on those less likely players if they are selected for the final squad. We'll do that in part 2, and that's a lot of candidates we looked at there. And that's going to be the case going forward, actually, because they tend to call up players and then, players come in and out of the squad. Anyway, let's go to the left back position. We'll begin by naming the candidates. So the first one is Aziz Kayondo, and he's at the definite level. And then we have actually Jordan Obita is a left back, a definite candidate, but played much more as a central defender, so we moved him there. So the next candidate on our list here is Isaac Mulemi, and he is a likely candidate. And possible candidate Herbert Achai, and then seemingly off the squad Joseph Ochea. Let's talk about the position then. The position was unsettled at first, with 4 different players in the position over the first 5 games. The last of these was Isaac Mulemi, who popped up in the position sporadically over the period. He popped up 4 times. In September of 2024, Aziz Kayondo came in and basically seized the position, including playing the last 4 games. However, he did miss 3 games through the period, and we saw Muleme replaced him a couple of times, and Jordan Obita replaced him once. Okay, so Aziz Kayondo, the main candidate in this position, he has been with Uganda since 2021 with 32 caps and 2 goals, but he's only 23 years old. He plays for Slovan Liberec in the Czech Republic and has played for teams in Spain and Israel as well. He started 11 of their 19 games over the period. He was on the bench for 2 and not selected for 6 matches, but that includes the first 4 matches. So pretty regularly selected since September 2024. Next, we have the Likely candidate, Isaac Muleme. He's been with Uganda since 2013 with 53 caps, and he's 33 years old. And he also plays in the Czech Republic for Victoria Žižkov, actually for their B team recently. But he's been with them for 6 years and has also played in Egypt. Mulemi was part of the 2019 African Cup there. He only appeared as a substitute in one of the games. And over the recent period, he has started 4 of their 19 games, but was on the bench for 8 games as well, and not selected for 5 matches. And those are the first 5 matches. So he has been called up also regularly since September of 2024. Next, we have the possible candidate, Herbert Achaye, and he's with Uganda since 2022 with 7 caps. He's 26 years old and plays for Kampala. Well, I have 2 different names for it. It's Kampala CCA, Kampala City Council, or Kampala Capital City. I've seen both of those, so I'm not dead sure what the name is. I'm going to call them Kampala CCA. He's been with them just recently, since 2025. He was with another club, Express, in Uganda before that. And Achaye returned after a 2.5-year absence just recently in September of 2025. He didn't start any of the remaining 4 games, but he was on the bench for 3 of them and then not selected for the last match. So Herbert Achaye, because he was there recently, we have to put him as a possible candidate. And finally, we have the seemingly off the squad, Joseph Ochoa, and he's actually a veteran with 66 caps since 2012. So we're going to give a little detail kind of as a kind of as a sign of respect, kind of a sign off. 66 caps and 3 goals since 2012. 31 years old and still playing club soccer. He's with a club in Egypt and has played in Zambia as well as Uganda, and was a starter in the 2017 African Cup there, but just on the bench for the 2019 version. So probably one of their more capped players here, but last appeared on the bench in September of 2024. So Joseph Ochoa, still 31 years old and a chance of coming back in, but seemingly off the squad for now. Okay, that's it for left backs. Aziz Kayondo, the main candidate there. And let's go to right backs and look. And what we have here actually is a few central defenders. Players coded as central defenders moved over here because this is where they played. In fact, we saw that Bevis Mugabe, who we moved to the left side, is coded as a right defender. So the first candidate here is Toby Sibic. Toby Sibic is coded as a central defender, but moved over here and at the likely level. We also have Elvis Bomono. Elvis Bomono, I think he goes by a different name anyway. Elvis Bomono, also a centre back, moved over here. He's at the possible level, and oops, I put him in the wrong place. And we also have at the possible level Gavin Kizito. And then one player at the possible but unlikely level, Nicholas Wadada. So let's talk about the right position. Sorry, I think I was mixing Bomono up with a player we're going to meet later. So it is Elvis Bomono. He started 4 of the first 6 games as the right back there. And then defensive midfielder Kenneth Semakula came in for the last game in June of 2024 and played the last 5 games of the fall 2024 African Cup qualifiers, as well as the June 2025 matches. So Kenneth Samakula, but he's actually a defensive midfielder, and he played equally as much as a defensive midfielder. So we're not going to introduce him here, but we'll introduce him in his coded position there. He just moved to play as right back for part of the period there, in the middle part of the period. Bumono, though, did return for the March 2025 matches and for the first fall 2025 match. But he was off the team for the last three games, Bumono, and central defender Toby Sibic, who had started twice as a central defender over the period, became a right back and started the last three games. Okay, let's look at these candidates. Tony Sibic, then, most recently in the position, and fairly new to the national team. Been with Uganda since 2024 and has 6 caps and is 26 years old. He plays for Burton Albion in England since 2025 and was with Wigan in England before that. He was born in England and got his first appearance on the bench in March of 2024 and started 5 of their remaining 18 games. He was on the bench for 5 as well, but not selected for 8 matches. So Tony Sibic, a likely candidate. The first of the possible candidates is Elvis Bumono, and he's been with Uganda since 2020 with 14 caps and no goals, and is 27 years old. He plays for a team in Iceland, IBV, actually his second stint with that team in Iceland, and was with St Mirren in Scotland in between from 2023 to 2025. Elvis Bumono started 8 of their 19 games over the period. He was on the bench for 2, but not selected for 9, and that includes the last 3 matches. Okay, and the other player at the possible level is Gavin Kizito. He's been with Uganda since 2021. And he has 19 caps and no goals, is 23 years old, and he also plays for Kampala CCA. Maybe I'll just call, no, there are other teams in Kampala, Kampala City Council, and played for another fairly big team, SC Villa in Uganda before that. He didn't start any of the games, Kizito, over the period, but he was on the bench for 8 of them, and not selected for 11 matches. But that does include the first 7 matches, so Kizito has been on the bench recently. That's why we have him as a possible candidate. Nicholas Wadada, another veteran for the team, appearing in the 2017 and 2019 African Cups there, but we're not going to go into detail on him because he didn't start any matches. He was just on the bench for 1 and then not selected for the last 5 matches. He actually returned after a 4-year absence there in June of 2025, but just poked his head in for 1 game. Okay, Nicholas Wadada then, just a possible but unlikely candidate, yeah. Okay, that is it for the right backs and actually for the defense as well. And so we move on up to the midfield, beginning with defensive midfielders. Actually, we're going to treat defensive and central midfielders as one group here. Let's look at the candidates for defensive midfielder, players coded that way, beginning with definite candidate Khalid Aucho. And then also definite Kenneth Samakula. And then we have 2 players seemingly off the squad, Joel Serenjogi and Tadeo Lawanga. Okay, those are the candidates, but let's look at the central midfield candidates as well. None at the definite level, but at the likely level, we have Ronald Sekinganda. And then we have Bobosi Byaruhanga, and sometimes he's just known as Bobosi. He's at the possible level. and then one player seemingly off the squad, Moses Opondo. So not so many candidates here, considering. Considering that we're looking at 2 or 3 positions. So as we saw in the opening, 40% of the time a 4-2-3-1, so that would be 2 defensive midfielders, even though it could be played by a central midfielder, and a 4-3-3, which is a central midfielder with a left and right midfielder there. Let's take a look at the story, the narrative. So 5 different players started across the first 3 games. And Kenneth Semakulu, who we met as a right back, he played as a right back during the middle of this period, and Ronald Sekiganda, and those 2 were actually the first pairing were a pairing in the first of the June 2023. Yikes, I'm all over the place here. I'm going to start over again. 5 different players started across the first 3 games in January and March of 2024. And 2 of those players were Kenneth Semakulu and Ronald Sekiganda. And those 2 were the pairing in the first of the June 2024 World Cup qualifiers. Semakulu only appeared as a right back after that, but then came back to the midfield for the last 4 games. Meanwhile, Sekiganda continued in the middle of the field here, and he was partnered with Bobosi Biaruhanga, who got his first start of the period there in the second game in June of 2024. For 4 of the 6 fall games, the African Cup qualifiers, it was a 3-man midfield, and it was Sekiganda as a right midfielder. Khalid Aucho came in as the left midfielder, and attacking midfielder Travis Mutjaba in the middle. We're going to see Travis Mutjaba also playing as an attacking midfielder, but here he's in the central midfield. So those are 4 of the 6 games, that 3-man midfield in the fall of 2024. In the other 2 games, Tadeo Luanga played with Khalid Aucho for both of those games. There was a bit of a mix and matching, mostly of the same players after that, through the March and June 2025 games. But Bobota did play both of those June 2025 games. In the fall of 2025, Semakula returned from his duties as a right back and partnered with Khalid Aucho for all 4 games there. Okay, so that seems the main partnership there, Aucho and Semakula, but we do see things change fairly quickly for Uganda. Let's take a look at the candidates, beginning with Khalid Aucho. He has been with Uganda since 2013 with 82 caps and 2 goals, and he's 32 years old, and he's playing for Singida Black Star, one of the bigger teams in Tanzania, and played for Young Africans, an even bigger team in Tanzania, for 4 years before that. He's also played in Egypt and India and in Serbia as well. So quite an experienced player. I think I said at the beginning that not many players have played in the previous African Cups. And as we go, I'm kind of getting embarrassed about that, because Aucho is another player who appeared in both of those cups there. He was a starter in 2019, and in 2017 became a starter after game 1. So Khalid Aucho there. In this recent period, he returned after a 10-month absence in September of 2024 and started 10 of their remaining 14 games, as well as subbing in for 1. So Khalid Aucho, a definite candidate here. The other definite candidate is Kenneth Semakula, been with Uganda since 2022 with 32 caps, but he's only 23 years old, and he plays for a club in Saudi Arabia, and also played in Kuwait, and for a big club in Tunisia, Club Africain. So he has pretty good club affiliations there. He started 18 of their 19 games, either as a defensive midfielder or as a right back over the period. So just one match he was not selected for. So Semakula, one of the most definite candidates you can get. Then we have two candidates seemingly off the squad. So I'll be brief with them. The first is Joel Serenjogi, and he was not selected for the last 12 matches. So and didn't start any games over the period. The other one is Tadeo Luenga. He was part of the 2019 African Cup squad, but last appeared on the bench in November of 2024. So we'll give more details in part two if they are selected for the final squad. Let's go to the central midfielders there. And the first candidate was at the likely level, Ronald Sekiganda. And he's been with Uganda just since 2024, but already has 11 caps and 1 goal, even though he is 30 years old. And he plays for a club in Rwanda since 2025, was in Uganda before that. And Sekiganda got his first cap right at the beginning of the period in January of 2024 and started 9 of their remaining started 9 of the 19 games, as well as subbing in for 2. And was on the bench for 4 matches as well, not selected for 2 others. So we could almost consider Sekiganda a definite candidate here. I'm not sure why we put him at the likely level, since he's called up almost all the time. But we'll leave him where he is for the time being. The next candidate was Bobosi Byaruhanga at the possible level. Been with Uganda since 2021 with 28 caps and no goals, and he's 24 years old. He plays in the USA for Oakland Roots since 2025 and was with Vizkov in Czech Republic for 3 years before that. Bobosi started 3 of their games over the period, as well as subbing in for 4, and was on the bench for 3, but not selected for 9 of the matches. So we have him as a possible candidate. And the seemingly off the squad candidate is Moses Apondo, and he last appeared in March of 2024. Okay, that is the central midfield, and let's move on upfield. Well, we did see a 4-3-3 formation, and we even saw that when they used it, it was kind of Aucho on the left, and who was on the right? Who was on the right now? I forget. Sekiganda was on the right with attacking midfielder Mutaba in the middle of that. They used that in 40% of the games over the period, but we don't have any players specifically coded as left and right midfielders. So basically central and defensive midfielder cover those spots. So we can move on upfield to the attacking end of the field, and we begin with attacking midfielders on the left side. So this will include attacking wingers in a 4-4-2 formation, attacking midfielders in a 4-2-3-1 formation, or even attacking forwards in a 4-3-3 formation, because it's usually the same players in those positions. So let's look at the candidates. First of all, we have definite candidate Rogers Matto. And we have 2 possible candidates, Enoch Sebagala. Enoch Sebagala and Patrick Kakande. And then 2 possible but unlikely candidates, Calvin Kabuye and Hakim Kiwanuka. And finally, 1 candidate, a bit of, or a veteran, a real veteran, one of the most capped players for Uganda, Emmanuel Okwi, who will kind of bid farewell to here. And let's look at the position over the period then. Over the first 5 games, it was forward Steve Mukwala. We're going to leave him as a forward because he also played there. Steve Mukwala and Rogers Matto shared the position, but Matto took over the position and played all 6 of the fall friendlies, all 6 of the fall 2024 African Cup qualifying games. He dominated the position for the most part, but sometimes did play elsewhere, Rogers Mato. So that allowed a few single appearances for players, actually usually out of position players. We won't get into those because just single appearances by a few players. So let's look at the or meet the candidate. Rogers Mato, then the main man on this side, and he is he's been with Uganda since 2022, but he has 38 caps and 7 goals, and he plays in North Macedonia for a club called Vardar. There, and actually his second club in North Macedonia, and he also played in Egypt after moving from Uganda. He started 16 of their 19 games over the period, as well as subbing in for one, so a definite candidate there. Rogers Mato, and then no candidates at the likely level, so we look at our first candidate at the possible level, Enoch Sebagala, brand new to the team since 2025 with 6 caps and no goals, and he's 25 years old. He plays for Vipers in Uganda and got his first appearance on the bench in March of 2025. He didn't actually start any games, he was just subbed in for one and on the bench for 3. Including the last match. He was not selected for 4 matches. So Enoch Sebagala, a possible candidate. Patrick Kakande, also fairly new to the team since 2024, but he has 10 caps. And I'm guessing actually for both of these players, a lot of those caps were earned in the African National Championship, kind of the B team there. Patrick Kakande is 22 years old and plays for SC Villa in Uganda, and got his first cap in the January 2024, right at the beginning of the period. He started one of their remaining 19 games. I think he also started one of those in July of 2024, one of their friendlies with Tanzania as well. He started one, subbed in for 3, and was on the bench for 3, and not selected for 12 others, including the last 3 matches. So not a strong candidate, Patrick Kanda, but at the possible level. At the possible but unlikely level, we have Calvin Kabuye. He's a Swedish-born player. He plays from Mjällby in Sweden and has played for a few clubs in Sweden there. First appeared on the bench in September of 2024 and did start 1 game and subbed in for 2, but was not selected for the last 6 matches there. And the other possible but unlikely player is Hakim Kiwanuka, and he returned after a 2.5-year absence in November of 2024 and started 1 game, subbed in for 2, and not selected for the last 5 matches. So, you know, they are possible candidates, but a little less likely there. The last candidate we'll look at is a veteran there, seemingly off the squad, Emmanuel Okwi, and 95 caps for the national team and 28 goals. So a real veteran there, actually still only 33 years old and still playing club soccer in Rwanda right now. But he played for a couple of teams in Iraq before that, and has also played in Denmark and Tunisia. Excuse me a second. Yes, in Denmark and Tunisia. And he was a starter in the 2019 African Cup, actually not selected for the 2017 African Cup, even though he was on the team for a long time by that time. Anyway, I'm struggling to wrap it up here. He last appeared for the team in June of 2023, so he's well off the squad, Emmanuel Okwi, but we are just kind of bidding farewell to him here. Okay, that is it for left attackers. Let's move to right attackers, and here we have 2 definite candidates. The first one, Dennis Omedi. He and the next one are both classified as forwards, but have been playing over in this position during this period at least. And O'Mady will appear as a forward as well. He's a definite candidate. So is June Semugabi. Also coded as a forward and appeared as a forward too. We have no likely or possible candidates, so we go straight down to possible but unlikely: Arafati Usama, and then Shafiq Nama Kwiki Riza. Both of those possible but unlikely. And finally, off the squad, seemingly, Joachim Ojera. Okay, let's talk about the position then. Obviously, it seems to be out of position players, because even Usama is an attacking midfielder, is coded as an attacking midfielder. 5 different players started the first 5 games up until March 2024, and that includes the forward Stephen Mukwala and left attacking midfielder Rogers Mato, who we just met in the previous section. None of those 5 players was Dennis O'Mady, though. He came in to play 5 of the 6 fall games in the 2024 African Cup qualifiers, or the fall 2024 African Cup qualifying games. Played 5 out of 6 of them. And then he and Alan Okello, attacking midfielder who we'll meet shortly, O'Mady and Okello each got a couple of starts in the position in 2025. However, the main player was the forward Jude Semugabi in 2025. Okay, that's why we've moved them over here. Dennis O'Mady, let's introduce you to him. He is with Uganda since 2023 and has 17 caps and 2 goals. He's 31 years old, and he plays for APR Kigali, one of the bigger teams in Rwanda there, since 2025, but was in Uganda before that. He got 2 of their 8 goals in qualifying for this tournament and started 10 of their 19 games over the period, as well as subbing in for 5. He was on the bench for 2, so just absent for 2 matches there. Dennis O'Mady then, a definite candidate. We're going to meet him a bit later as well. Same with Jude Semugabi. He's been with Uganda since 2024. He has 17 caps and 4 goals, and is 28 years old. He's with Vipers in Uganda. His whole career has been with clubs in Uganda. He got his first appearance on the bench in September 2024 and started 8 of the remaining 14 games, as well as subbing in for 2 and on the bench for 2. So just 2 matches that he was absent for as well. Down to the possible but unlikely candidate, Arafati Usama. He did start 2 of their games over the period, but was not selected for 16 of the 19 matches. So that includes the last 4 matches. So he is unlikely, it seems. The other candidate, Shafiq Nana Kwikiriza, first appeared on the bench in October of 2024. He started 1 match over the period, didn't sub in for any, and was on the bench for 2, but not selected for 9 matches. Also not appearing in the fall of 2025 there. And finally, seemingly off the squad, Joachim Ojera last appeared for the national team in September of 2024. So there we have it. Okay, that's the right attackers. Let's go to the central attacking midfield. And here we have 2 definite candidates. The first one is Alan Okello. And the second one is Travis Muchaba, who we met as a central midfielder when we talked about them. We have 2 possible candidates as well, Kareem Watambala and Alan Oyerwath. And that's all we have over here. Let's talk about the position. This position was used 7 times over the period. That was when they used a 4-2-3-1 formation. And we've seen that attacking midfielder Travis Muchaba played as the central midfielder when it was a 4-3-3 formation. So really it's just a small push upfield for him to become a central attacking midfielder. And he did so twice, both of those in 2024, so the first half of the period here. In the second half, though, it was Alan Okello who played most of the games, including 3 of the 4 times that they used this formation in the fall of 2025. The other time, the forward Stephen Mukwala appeared once. And with that appearance, Stephen Mukwala is the only player to appear at least once in every attacking position. So left and right attacking midfielder, central attacking midfielder, and we're going to see him as a forward as well. Okay, let's look at the candidates. Alan Okello has been with the team since 2019 with 43 caps and 9 goals, and he's still only 25 years old. Plays for Vipers in Uganda, but did play outside of Uganda for Paradou in Algeria, Paradou AC, for 3 years there. And he started 10 of their games. This is Alan Okello, started 10 of their games over the period, as well as subbing in for 3 and on the bench for 3. And the only matches he was absent for were the first 3 matches of the period. So has been called up consistently since. So Alan Okello, a definite candidate. Travis Muchaba has been with the team since 2021, and he has 30 caps and 3 goals for the national team. And believe it or not, he is still 20 years old. So he got his first call up at 16 years of age. And so it's close. Well, I wouldn't call him a veteran, but is a very experienced player at the tender age of 20. Travis Muchaba started. Oh no, he plays for Sfaxian in Tunisia. That's a pretty big club, and an even bigger club before that, Bordeaux in France. And prior to that, Bordeaux in France in 2024-25. So in 2024, he moved from Uganda over to Bordeaux, and actually also played for Zamalek in Egypt. He was loaned to them in 2024. So really good resume for Muchaba here. He only started 9 of their 19 games over the period, though. He was subbed in for 7 and on the bench for 2. So actually just absent or not selected for 1 match. So a pretty interesting player there. I'm looking forward to seeing him in the Cup. Travis Muchaba, a definite candidate. The first of the 2 possible candidates is Corinne Watambala. He's been with Uganda since 2019 with 23 caps, and he's 25 years old. And he's with Vipers in Uganda since 2019. So a long time with that club. His whole career has been in Uganda. Watambala started 2 of their games over the period, as well as subbing in for 1. He was on the bench for 3, but not selected for 13 matches there. And the second possible candidate, Alan Oyerwath, I should say, Alan Oyerwath, has been in Uganda, has been with the national team since 2023, just 4 caps, but he's only 18 years old and is playing for New England Revolution, one of the biggest clubs in the USA since 2025. He moved from a fairly small club in Uganda. So that's pretty interesting. Oyerwath had started 2 of their 19 games over the period, subbed in for 1, and on the bench for the last 2, but not selected for 14 of the matches. So a really could be an up-and-coming player there, Alan Oyerwath, but not actually appearing that much over the period. Ooh, some interesting players there. And that brings us to the end of the midfield, and we move on to forwards. And we actually do have 1 player coded as a secondary striker. It's Mohamed Shaban. However, we're going to move him to a forward because they never used this position and he's been playing as a forward when he has been playing. So let's go to the forwards then. And we have as a definite candidate Steve Mukwala. A definite candidate. We have moved a few players out of here, so I'll just remind you there. We have Dennis Omeda, a definite candidate who we moved to the right attacking midfield, as well as Jude Semugabi also moved to the right attacking midfield, although they did play some games as a forward, as we'll see shortly. We have a candidate at the likely level, Uche Ikpeazu. And then at the possible level, that's where we have Muhammad Shaban, coded as a striker there, secondary striker. And we also have Reagan Mpandi as a possible candidate. Two possible but unlikely. The first is Fahad Bayo, who does appear in the narrative here. And the second one is Ivan Ahimbisibwe. Possible but unlikely. And then a whole bunch of seemingly off the squad players, beginning with Milton Carissa. Then veteran Faruku Maya. Derek Sabambi. And finally, Yunus Sentamu. So we'll take a look at those, especially Faruku Maya. There, but let's talk about the position as it played out over the period. So we saw in section one that it's a single forward 83% of the time and a two-man forward line 17% of games. The first two games were actually the paired forwards. It was Muhammad Shaban alongside Dennis Umedi. For the first two games, and in the third game there in March of 2024, Fahad Bayo. And actually, Bayo was a single forward over the next three games, except in the middle game where he was joined by Stephen Mukwala there. Okay, so that information brings us to the fall of 2024. Where 6 different players, believe it or not, appeared as lone forwards over the 6 games. And that includes all the players we've mentioned above, except for Bayo, who is now off the team. Muhammad Shaban played both of the March 2025 matches, and he was joined by attacking midfielder Alan Okello in one of them. But it was 2 different players in June. And one of the June 2025 starting forwards was the left attacking midfielder Ronald Mato. Shaban was not selected for the fall 2025 games, and it was Stephen Mukwala starting 3 of them, and Jude Semugabi the other. So pretty undecided up front there, but recently it's been Stephen Mukwala starting. Let's take a look at him because he is our definite candidate here. Mukwala has been with Uganda since 2019 with 27 caps, only 2 goals though. And he's 26 years old. He plays for Simba in Tanzania, also one of their biggest clubs since 2024. He also played in Ghana, and all his clubs have been in Uganda prior to 2022. Mukwala had started 8 of their 19 games over the period, as well as subbing in for 6, and he was on the bench for 2. So just 3 matches he was not selected or absent for. So Stephen Mukwala, a definite candidate. The likely candidate, Uche Ikpeazu, has been with Uganda since 2025 with 4 caps and no goals, and he's 30 years old, so a bit of a late joiner. He was born in England, and he plays for St. Johnstone in Scotland and played for Port Vale in England. And I am duty bound to point out that he also played for Cardiff in the English League. He was loaned to them in 2022. We have to say that. I have to say that because I was born there and lived in Cardiff until I was 10. So we're always at pains to point that out. Anyway, thanks for that small self-indulgence, and now I'll get back to my business. Ikpeazu got his first cap in September 2025. Didn't start any of the remaining 4 games, but subbed in for 3 of them and was on the bench for 1 other. So some good recent involvement there from Ikpeazu. The first of the possible candidates is Mohamed Shaban. He's been with Uganda since 2016 with 28 caps and 3 goals, and he's 27 years old. And he's playing in Ethiopia right now since 2025, having played in Libya, a couple of teams in Libya before that. And in 2019, he was with a fairly big club, Raja Casablanca, in Morocco, but otherwise with Ugandan teams there. And he was part of the squad for the African Cup in 2017, way back then. He was subbed into a couple of games there, not selected in 2019 though, and has kind of been on and off the team over the period. But over this recent period, Shaban started 5 of their 19 games and subbed in for 4 and was on the bench, but not selected for 9 others. And that includes the last 4 matches, which is why he is just at the portable level here, Mohamed Shaban. Regan Pandey has brand new to the team since 2025. He has 7 caps and 1 goal, but I think most of those were in the African National Championship there. Pandey is 25 years old and plays for clubs in SC Villa in Uganda. His whole career has been in Uganda, and he got his first cap for the senior national team in September 2025. So he possibly performed well in the African Nations Championship that summer. That's what I'm guessing. He didn't start any games in Pandey, but he was subbed in for 1 and on the bench for 1, and then was not selected for the last match there. The first of possible but unlikely candidate is Fahad Bayo, and he's been with Uganda since 2018. 29 caps and a very good record, 9 goals since 2018, and he's 27 years old, and he plays for Vyškov in Czech Republic. We've seen that name once before in this media cast. Prior to that, he played in Israel and has also played in Zambia as well as several teams in Uganda. So he tends to get a goal in every qualification run. 3, in fact, for World Cup 2022 qualifying, he scored all 3 of their goals, Fahad Bayo. However, last appeared for the national team in June of 2024. And sorry, I shouldn't be giving so much information on a possible but unlikely candidate there, although I wouldn't be surprised to see him come back into the team. I'll make it shorter, though, for the other possible but unlikely candidate, Ivan Ahimbisibwe. First appearance in March of 2025, didn't start any games, but on the bench for the first 2 and then not selected for the last 4. So unlikely, it seems. The first of our 4 seemingly off the squad players is Milton Carissa, and he is quite experienced, 51 caps since 2017, but didn't play in any tournaments and last appeared for the national team in March 2024. Next, though, I'll go into a bit more detail on Farouk Umaya, since he's a real veteran for the team, with Uganda since 2014, 79 caps and an impressive 23 goals. But he's only 28 years old here, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him back, actually. Currently playing for a Greek team that I've never heard of, Iliopoli, since 2025, but the teams he's played before that I definitely have heard of, like Rizaspor in Turkey and Lviv in Ukraine and Standard Liège in Belgium. So pretty good resume, and he was a starter in the 2017 and 2019 African Cups, one of their most noticeable players there. Um, yeah, so last appeared in 2023 there. I'm just looking at a note that doesn't make sense. Sorry. Um, he missed a penalty in African Cup 2023 qualifying. That's what it means. Anyway, since 2023. So, once again, young enough to come back to the team, Faruku Maya. It seems like a pretty good player there. Next, we have Derek Sibambi, and he also 26 caps and 7 goals for the national team and was part of the squad in the 2019 African Cup, but last appeared in October of 2024. There's actually one more name that I forgot to put on the list. It's Nelson Senkatuka. 13 caps for the national team since 2015, so he's been in and out. Wasn't part of any tournaments and last appeared in January of 2024. Senkatuka, and the last candidate, Yunus Sentamu, 35 caps for the national team since 2014. Part of the 2017 African Cup squad, but didn't see any action in that tournament and not selected for the 2019 version, but last appeared for the senior team, at least on the bench in November 2023. He did play in the African National Championship in 2025, though. So all of those players seemingly off the squad, but wouldn't be surprised with Uganda to see some of them coming back into the fray. That does bring us, though, to the end of part 3. To the end of section 2, the main section. So we're moving on to section 3 here. We want to welcome new listeners to section 3, which we're releasing as a short version of part 1 on Uganda's players here. So I'll just speak to those people that in the first version, or in the full version, we introduced the candidates on their likelihood of making the final squad. We also gave some career information on the main players. So if you want to get to know the players better, you can look at the full version. Otherwise, we're just summarizing here, and we're not concerning ourselves with starters. With predicting starters at this point. We're going to do that in section or in part 2, which will come out in December. So for part 1 here, we're just going to review the candidates and their likelihood of making it. So let's begin with the manager, Paul Putt. He's been their manager since the end of 2023 there, so he's guided them through the last couple of years. And then we have goalkeepers. No candidates at the definite level, and definitely an odd situation with players coming in from the cold, playing for a few games, and then off the squad again. So the most recent of those are our likely candidates. That's Salim Jamal Magula, Dennis Onyango, and Nafian Alionsi, all of those likely candidates. Then we have 2 at the possible level, Joel Mutakubwa and Ismail Watenga. Among defenders, for central defenders, we have a definite candidate in Jordan Obita, actually coded as a left back, but playing in central defence. A likely candidate in Elio Capradosi, and then 4 possible candidates, Bevis Mugabe, Timothy Awani, Hilary Mukundani, and Rogers Torak. We're not going through the possible but unlikely or the seemingly off the squad players here, just the more likely ones. In the left back position, we have a definite candidate in Aziz Kayondo and a likely candidate in Isaac Mulene and a possible candidate in Herbert Achai. For right backs, we have no definite candidates. And actually, we don't have a lot of right backs. So we see central defenders coming in to this position and even defensive midfielders. We have Toby Sibic as a likely candidate. And then 2 possible candidates, Elvis Bomono and Kevin Kizito. But I should also say that defensive midfielder Kenneth Semakula played quite a few games there. We're going to meet him right here as we move up to the midfield, because he's one of our definite defensive midfielders. So Kenneth Kenneth Semakalu. Let me try that one more time. Kenneth Semakula. And we also have a definite candidate in Khalid Aucho, but no likely or possible candidates here. However, for central midfielders, we have likely candidate Ronald Sekiganda and possible candidate Bobosi Bwaruhanga. Moving on upfield, we have no left and right midfielder candidates, so we go to left attacking midfielders. We have a definite candidate in Rogers Mato there. No candidates at the likely level, but we have two possible candidates, Enoch Sebagala and Patrick Kakande. Over on the right side, it's also out of position players here, mostly forwards. Two definite candidates, Dennis Omeda and June Semugabi, but none at the likely or possible levels. Central attacking midfielders, we have a definite candidate in Alan Okello and also Travis Muchaba. Both of those, let me say that again, Travis Muchaba. Both of those definite candidates. Also two possible candidates, Kareem Watambala and Alan Oyerwath. And finally, we have forwards, just one definite candidate in Stephen Mukwala, a likely candidate in Uche Ikpiazu, and then two possible candidates in Muhammad Shaban and Regan Mpande. Okay, that's our race through the players, review of candidates. Let's look at some big names who are off the squad or close to being off the squad. At least, let me just find myself here. We have left back Joseph Okaya or Ochaya, and he, well, we won't give details because we did in the main section or in the full length podcast. He last appeared in September 2024. So these players are not necessarily gone, but just seem to be off the squad. The next one is actually a possible but unlikely player, Nicholas Wadada, 63 caps for the national team, but not selected for the last 5 matches there. So he might come back. Next, we have Emmanuel Okwi. Last appeared in June of 2023. He has 95 caps and 28 goals for the national team. And finally, Faruku Maya, actually not that old, 28 years old, but last appeared in 2023. He has 79 caps and 23 goals. So he in particular, I wouldn't be surprised to see return. Let's take a look at injuries on the squad. Well, as far as we know, there are no injuries for Uganda right now. So that's good news if that's true for them. As I say, as far as we know, we have no reported injuries. Closing thoughts on Uganda? Well, particularly with the goalkeepers, it's a bit surprising how they come in and out. So I think a lot of the candidates that we have at the possible but unlikely level or seemingly off the squad level may come back in if the goalkeeper situation is anything to go by. So I feel a bit tentative about our predictions in this media cast, and we may see some different names when we get to part 2. Speaking of part 2, let's preview what we're going to do when that comes out after the preliminary and final squads are released. We'll tell you which of the candidates made it and which ones didn't. We'll highlight any notable non-selections or any surprise inclusions. We'll tell you about any new players, especially those making the final squad. And we'll look at the injury situation again to see if anything has changed. And finally, my favorite part, we will do our spotlight review. That's when we predict the players we're going to think we think will be starters. That might be a bit difficult for Uganda, but there we have it. And we thank you then for joining us for part one here, and we hope to see you again in part two. We would like to thank Pixabay and Cold Fingers for the wonderful music used in this mediacast. The title of the piece is Eid Mubarak.